Hi, Bill the Flavor Guy here, and today we're going to talk about that new espresso machine you got. And if you're a beginner, we're going to go over the things that will help you make a better tasting espresso. And if you're a seasoned veteran, well, then there's some great tips here to be had. These new machines, they're somewhat complicated. Takes a little bit of practice to get the hang of it. It's not a one and done or plug and play. You got to practice at it to make a good espresso. So I want to give you 4 tips on how to make a better espresso. First thing that's really important to me, and probably should be to you as well, is the freshness of your beans. Here at Nature's Flavors and at the Flavor Guy's house, we roast our beans fresh. We're spoiled. Every time you roast the beans and you get to grind those things first thing in the morning or even an hour after you've roasted them, you are never gonna have a better tasting cup of coffee than at that moment. A lot of the coffees that you buy at the store that are in bags, listen, I'm not, no pun intended, I'm not trying to bag on them, but those beans may have been roasted 30, 60, 90, maybe 500 million years ago. They're old already and they're oxidizing. There's nothing worse than an oxidized coffee bean. So the best beans are the freshly roasted beans. Also, if you really want to get crazy, the type of bean you used, how long you roasted the bean definitely plays a role. If you're crazy enough like me, the flavor guy, you mix beans. So you take some beans from, say, Colombia, some from Mexico, some from Honduras, maybe throw in some Ugandas, and now you've got a breakfast blend, and you'll never be able to repeat that one, and it'll be probably one of the best coffees you ever had. So the quality of the beans, freshly roasted beans, that's all the kinds of things that really make a great espresso from your new espresso machine. That's not my new espresso machine, but the company's. We have a few of them, different ones.
Okay.
Next tip, water. Filtered water from the tap is what I would say, if that's the only thing you have, then go for it. Don't use straight tap water. It's loaded with chloramines. If you don't like the way it tastes at a restaurant with ice, you're not gonna like the way it tastes at your house in a cup of coffee or an espresso. So if you use spring water, and there are some spring waters out there, their water's awesome, but I wouldn't use it to make my coffee. Especially espresso. It's gonna mess with the heating elements. It has calcium in it and other minerals, salts, and eventually it's gonna mess your machine up, it's gonna burn out. But it's a great tasting spring water. My best tip is if you can have an RO system under the sink, under the counter, get one of those. That's gonna make a great tasting cup of coffee. RO water, for you people that don't know, is reverse osmosis. Those little things underneath the sink with a tank in them and a bunch of filters, that's gonna give you great tasting water. And it's gonna take a lot of the nasty chemicals and salts, things like that, maybe some metals out of that water. Or good old-fashioned distilled water. The Flavor Guy's favorite way, I highly recommend that. Why? Because for me, I'm all about the flavor. I really want to taste the coffee beans. It's gonna be a little dry. That's maybe something that you guys out there that are connoisseurs don't like, but that's just me. I like the taste of distilled water and my espresso and coffee, but I'd love to hear from you. I'm a big fan of distilled water. I'm a big fan of RO, but you might not be. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you do like and why you like it. All right, let's move on to the next tip. Let's talk about the grind size. I like a fine grind. Most of these machines like a fine grind. I mean, you know, when I'm making coffee, just regular coffee, I sometimes make a size of a grain of sand, and I just let it sit there longer. It's a different flavor altogether. But no matter what, when it comes to espresso, the finer the grind, the better. And tamping it down firmly, evenly, so it's not off keel or, you know, the levels are different. You want a good, firm, straight level on the tamping, tamp firmly. Because remember, you're gonna be forcing water, hot water, almost steaming water through that grind. So you don't want air pockets. You want the water to flow through and just make contact with that fine, powdery grind. And dosage. Now, if something tells you to weigh out your coffee beans in grams every time, that's kind of like a Flavor Guy thing, and you gotta have a really good scale to do that, so don't do that. Get used to, you know, each time you make that cup of coffee, pay attention. And if it tastes really good, try to remember what you did. And if you're like the Flavor Guy, sometimes I write things down on a piece of paper before, especially if I'm doing something new. Then if it's good, I can repeat it. You don't need to necessarily do that, but don't worry about weighing out the beans. Just get a good visual on how much you tamp down in there, get an idea where it sits inside that little cup. This is what it looks like. But get used to how much you put in there. Tapping down firmly, tapping down evenly. Take a look at it, pull it off. You see where it's at inside there, you know how much pressure you put on. That's gonna be your future mark. So you're gonna mark that visually in your head and say, yeah, every time I put it right there with that grind size, I get a pretty good cup of coffee. Last tip, maintenance of your equipment. Like anything, proper maintenance means the equipment's gonna last a lot longer. It's gonna look pretty in your kitchen because they're all stainless steel, right? Or sometimes they're copper. Again, going back to the water, using good clean water, it's gonna keep the inside clean, keeping everything all clean on the outside, soapy water, rinsing it real good, drying it, keep the spots down. Good maintenance, and this kind of machine will last you, a couple of years, maybe longer. Depends on how many espressos you make. I hope these tips helped you out. Your journey to making a great espresso, a cup of coffee, or Americana. Stay tuned for some more great videos. Again, leave me a comment and subscribe if you like, and look forward to seeing you in the next coffee video.